Hello everyone, this is Board Games and Bourbon. I'm Glenn Flaherty, and right now I want to talk to you about San Juan, which is one of my favorite games. It's a card-driven Euro that is really easy to pick up. You're in the race to win it right from the get-go, and every time I bring it out, it's a winner. So that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention. Now, in this video, I want to talk about how it plays, what it compares to, because there are games that it came from and games that it led to, why it stands out, and where I would place it in your collection, and maybe in gaming overall. Now, the purpose of the game is that you're trying to build a city of 12 cards, and these are the cards you're going to use. Now, San Juan, is in Puerto Rico, and you get these cards over here that have this really great hand-done art that kind of like plays into that theme. You're going to have two types of buildings here. You are going to have production buildings, and for instance, let's start with this one. This is actually one of your starting hands here. You're going to get a card like this. It's called an indigo plant. And this is your starting production. Production gives you cards, and that feeds into your engine to build and buy bigger things. Now, you'll only ever get production of 1 point, 1 card, 1 currency in this game. And as you go on, you get into things that are more significant. There's going to be other production buildings like let's look here, the sugar mill. The sugar mill typically would cost you 2 points to buy. It'll produce you something and then give you 1 point at the end of the game. There's another one called the tobacco storage, which is 3, costs 3 to buy, gives you 2 points at the end of the game. You have this one here called the coffee roaster, 4 to buy, gives you 2 points at the end of the game. But that's important that you're moving up in these rank of cards, because what's going to happen is as we go to a buying, a creating, a producing, and then a trading phase, each of these production buildings as the game goes on produces more and more currency that helps us buy things. And then we have this card here. It's a 5-pointer. It's a silver smelter, and it's also going to provide us with 3 points at the end of the game. So you have these production buildings that give us things. The other thing you have in the game are these cards called city buildings. And what they basically do is they synergize with the production. So you start with one here. You probably get this early on because it's only 1 point to get, but it doesn't do much. This one here says you can draw 1 extra card if you didn't sell anything from a building. That's important, it gets you cards, but not that big of a deal. Over here, this one's 4 points. You might get that later on when you have more cards in your hand that you can spend. And then here it says owner draws 1 more when selling at least 1 good. So you sold something, you're going to get currency. Now you get extra currency, plus it's worth 2 points. Now, the thing that makes this really cool is that these cards serve 3 purposes. They're not only the currency in the game themselves, they serve as what you're trying to build, and they give you the points that I just showed you. So when you start the game, the barrier, what is it? 1 card down, 1, 2, 3, 4 in hand. And if I want to build something on my turn, I'm going to choose a role that lets me do something like that. In this game, I can either produce goods, which means my production plant produced a card. I can trade this card in. Now it's my opportunity. I can trade this in, and that will give me the benefit of however many cards that it says I should have. I can build. It means I have the opportunity to put one of these cards into my building, trying to get those 12. So, for instance, if I wanted to build this number 4 building, well, I would need to pay 4 additional cards for my hand. This doubles as the currency. Not only the buildings come up by currency. Well, I can't build that because it says 4, but I have only 3 cards. How would I have built that? Well, I probably can't. I could probably build a number 2 building, and then I get rid of 2 cards. But which 2 cards do I get rid of? Because maybe I want to save for that 5, but 5's hard to get. Maybe I should pay with the 5 and 4 and give me the 3 because that's closer to being built next time, but it won't be as powerful. Decisions. There's also cards in there that lower the cost of buildings. Some things will give you extra points depending on what you have. A lot of things you got to decide in there. There's an action called the counselor that I can do. That just lets me draw cards and then choose my favorite, and then the prospector just says draw 1 card and deal with it. Okay, so now that's the basic overview of the game. You're going to have a lot of decisions. It comes down to what cards you want to use, but timing is also going to come into play there too. So like I said, you're going to have these production buildings. And you have these roles. And on your turn, you're going to choose what role you want to be. The game is 2 to 4 people, so not all these roles are going to come out. The governor in this game is basically just player number 1. They make sure that it's being played well. If you don't know what's going on, you refer to this super small, very easy rule book to use. When you decide you're going to produce, you're going to choose this tile. Everyone gets to produce 1 item on their card. However, if you chose this tile yourself, you get to produce twice. So everyone else gets to put 1 card on 1 production building. You, however, get to do it on 2. That's going to be really important because when it's time to sell, you get to sell more things. I'll explain that in a second. Now we move to the trader. If you are the person who chose the trader, you trigger trading. And sometimes you can mess other people up with your timing. Trading means you can choose one of these buildings to sell. Okay, well, how do we know how much cards and buildings are worth? There are these little tiles here. And what you're going to notice when we look at these tiles, you're going to choose one of these. These are the daily prices for the market. Indigo buildings on top will only yield you 1 card. So if I only had an indigo and I wanted to trade, I would trade in my 1 card from my indigo and I would draw 1 card in my hand. Now that's important because the card I get, remember, it's going to be a point value that essentially was free. It also could give me production, a higher production value if it was a production building, or maybe a super powerful synergy if it was a city card, okay? Or, okay, so that's if I had indigo. Maybe I had the next building, which I think is sugar. Well, sometimes depending on what I choose, I could have chosen that. It would give me 1, but maybe I chose this one. It gives me 2s. Now, if that was the case, I trade in my 1 item from that given card, and now I get 2 into my hand. So my hand's becoming more robust. That goes all the way down to where you have that silver smelter, and that lets you draw 3. Okay, so ooh, I get 3. Okay, so not only 3, but remember, if I had the tile, now I can draw from 2 buildings. So if I had 2 silver smiths in my hand, I could trade those in. I would get 6 cards, whereas someone else could only do it from 1 building, and maybe they had an indigo and they had just 1 card that they could draw. So your timing and where you invested your property and your resources really pays off. It's a totally legit method to invest in productions, but it's also a totally legit method to only invest in city buildings, because sitting buildings can really, really help each other and generate in lots of different ways. Many paths to victory here. Then at some point, it's going to be the time to build your buildings. Now, I can't just stick these buildings down. I have to actually be able to put them down in the correct order. Building means, again, that I may be able to pay to build my building. So if I wanted to build, let's say, my number 1 indigo, I say I'm going to build this. It costs 1 card from my hand, and I'm going to toss that card away, okay? Now, if I had the tile for building myself, that's for everyone, but if I'm the person who drew the building, I get a discount. So in this case, if I had a bunch of cards in my hand and I wanted to build this indigo building, well, it only costs 1, but because I chose a tile, my discount is 1, so that became a free building. That's really going to help in the future. When you want to build buildings like this is a 7-pointer. It brings it down to 6. There's even other cards that can bring it down further, I believe. Really, really important, okay? You can have multiples of production buildings, only one of a kind for city buildings. Then you have the counselor where you draw cards, choose your favorite and keep it. And then you have the prospector. And in that, you just draw a card willy-nilly. That's really if you're really just stuck. And that's how it goes. The turns are very fast. Everyone knows what's going on. You're in charge of your own engine and you're not blocked. Now, that's really important because blocking can be frustrating. And what do I mean by blocking? Well, when we block something, like in its predecessor, this game was derived from a game called Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a 3 to 5 player game, came out in 2002. Has a great rating, like an 8. It's a big proper Euro, but oddly enough, San Juan actually sells for more nowadays. In that game, when you went to the market, if I was going to sell or produce the items from the coffee roaster, I forget which way it is, only one person could do that, and then everyone else couldn't. So you kind of got screwed over there. Here, that element isn't in it, so it's a lot easier and more fun to play. This game, following this, I think it was 2007, Race for the Galaxy came out. And that's this kind of game, but set in a outer space world. It's more complex, has a lot of symbols on it, a lot of icons. And, you know, for me, the simple pleasure of being able to get in and out of this game is really some of its brilliance. Race for the Galaxy has a slightly higher BGG score because it is more complex, but that complexity I'm not sure really translate into a more fun experience. It certainly is more thought-provoking. I do like the art here more as well. And why does this stand out? Well, you know, whereas other games often will go down that route of trying to be more complex is more game, here it really distilled it down to the essential essence. And so that kind of tells me, where does this belong in a collection? Well, I got to tell you, I think this game belongs with the greats of Carcassonne, Century Spice Road or Splendor, and all those perennials, the new perennials that if you're going to build a collection, you got to have those basics. And that doesn't mean if it's basic, it's a basic game. It means it's one you can always reliably go back to. So that is San Juan. Okay, it's very easy to play. The synergies are really cool. You can break it out with anyone, and new players can jump right into the mix. So if you have specific questions about gameplay, I'm happy to help you. And until next time, friends, be well. Bye.